your consent to some pretty nefarious acts in other countries that are not your own are being manufactured right now. And so last year I made a video, and it's actually several different videos in which I was like, hey, you need to pay attention to how Empire does a series of things. I've done a series of videos on this, including deifying a human being, sanctifying their every act, and then utilizing, like weaponizing who and what they were, whether or not they would approve of what you're doing with their likeness and their life. And then they use it for the purpose of empire. And you saw that in many different ways. I won't go through everything because I really don't have, I don't want this to be a long video, but I want you guys to engage in some critical thinking. Okay? Because my generation had to sit and watch what our intuition was telling us, like, weapons of mass destruction. Why are we going over there? Isn't that the wrong spot? And then we've seen, and if you're unsure what weapons of mass destruction was, what 9/11 was, and all of that, you need to go and research that. And you need to see how consent to butchery was manufactured in the American people, and consent to being butchered. What does that mean? Consent to sending your youth, your sons and your daughters in mass to another country to do things to individuals they did not know, on behalf of the rich and the elite who they did not know, needed the underclasses, needed them to buy into their plans in that area of the world. And I want you to understand right now, there are things going on in your environment, because I'm trying not to seem tinfoil hatty, right? But I think based on the receptiveness of people to the video, I think you guys are seeing it too. They are manufacturing your consent currently. And I told you guys, I really do see schmerism, the T word that you can't say, like that is being and going to continue to be used to get you guys to consent to a consolidation of power. It's not just a consolidation of power in the executive branch, as I was telling you about in the other videos that I have been working on. But sorry, I'm under the weather. But it's a global initiative. It's a global initiative. And so I want you guys to look at the different acts that are being used to pit a series of groups that they've classically used to pit them against each other. And then I want you to be very careful. And I want you to be very much so aware of your surroundings, because, and I'm not saying it's not something that I want or that I hope. And it's not something that I would ever take part in, ever. But excuse me, but you need to be on the lookout. As I was telling you all, when the propaganda isn't working, they will use brutality and false events. There will be events that occurred, but the propaganda around them, like they just did with the person I was referring to earlier, that in earlier videos too, in which Empire took the unaliving of a person, and they took that person, despite who that person was, and they began to remanufacture who and what they were into dadgum near sainthood. And that person became who and what they were. You could not question that. You could not criticize it, because that's what Empire wanted. So when you get these explanations of events, I'm not saying be completely tinfoil hatty. I want you to pay attention to the patterns, because people like myself who have high pattern recognition, since I was a little kid, I tested that way, right? It's stuff that tested me into certain programs. because it's just this thing. And so I'm able to predict things that people just don't see. And so I'm telling you now, you need to trust your intuition, because they're the things that are at hand that already have been planned. Like, I'm not the only person telling you about New York. Like, and I started speaking about New York, and also spoke about Americans and a very specific group of people. Like, they're going to know what it is like to be under the rubble, right? It's not because I want it. It has nothing to do with me. It is because there are certain groups and individuals who have initiatives that are very nefarious and incredibly evil. And so those groups right now, that sounds so vague. Like, even I would be like, hey, little tinfoil hattie, but I'm telling you now, you should not just take the propaganda given to you by legacy media or your online, as we are seeing right now. Those who used to use legacy media to pipe out propaganda are now using your popular ideologue, your influencer, to influence you, like to brainwash you into believing things that seem right. And so whether it is legacy media or your influencer, I want you guys to think critically, because the desperation of those who are used to being in power is going to breed brutality, but they're going to manufacture your consent out of fear. One. Two, lack of knowledge. They're already working on dumbing down future generations, right? It's why those of us who are educated have to be prepared to teach. That's a whole new field, but that's a different video. Three, but this video is going long. Three, I really want you guys to be very, very careful and very, very aware, because they're not playing with you all. The stuff that they field tested in other countries that are outside of the one that you're in, outside of the West, in the global South, and they've gotten away with stuff, they're okay with doing that here. They just sent a warning shot to those people in America that they will starve you to get what they want. Flooding your city with drones while the government's lying about and pretending not to know where those drones came from, and then, oh, by the way, we find out which company's drones they were in large part. They're okay. They're okay with terrorizing you. They're okay with unaliving you in events that gets you to consent, right? Consent, because their main fear really is open rebellion of the masses, right? Because then they got to start nuking cities, and they don't want to nuke cities. They want you to be quiet. They want you to listen to these sociopathic influencers who are just in it for the likes and clicks. They put on their little sweatshirt, put on their little hoodie, and they're like, oh my God. And they say crazy stuff that seems right. And you guys are heading head first into, with all of the AI and the things that are going on, believing anything. So I'm just going to say now, from a person who lived through it, saw it, and was sitting there as a young person going, okay, how do we just flip from one country to another? Weren't these people being blamed, right? And we all believe the news. Weren't these people being blamed? But now we're going to go and invade that place, and we're looking for what? Right? And your intuition is telling you that the adults, some of the adults are lying, okay? And so I'm going to tell you guys now, and I'm going to end this video. Think critically. I'm not talking about being a contrarian. I'm talking about thinking critically. Because the hijinks that are coming, it won't even be mind-blowing. I'm not gonna tell you guys that. It won't be mind-blowing. It will be atypical and very lazy. Very, very lazy.